Would you like to bet $20 and win $100 at BetMGM regardless of your wager's outcome and get $100 in free wager bucks? Just go to wt.buzz/MGM for more details and find out if you're eligible for this amazing offer.
Friday, November 12th. It is Friday. Happy Friday, everybody. We got a huge weekend ahead of us in college and pro football. Of course, college and pro basketball. Every day is huge for us. We're going to break it down the best we can here on Friday, November 12th. WagerTalk Today here on WagerTalk TV. I am not the Prez. He is getting some orthodontic work, getting his braces taken off today, Teddy. And I will fill in for him the best I can. I am Steve Merrill, your co-host for today. Prez will be back on Monday. And that, of course, is my co-host, as always, rock steady Teddy Covers, WagerTalk.com. And Teddy, before we get to what you learned last night and before we get to some opening thoughts, I just want to let the folks know we've got a loaded card today, a loaded show today. We got 3 guests breaking down mostly football. We got a little bit of college football. Actually, it's all football. We're going to look all football in the breakdown. We've got Rob Veno. He always makes me proud. 2 college football games. Miami of Florida, Florida State used to be one of the biggest games of the year. UAB Marshall. It's never been one of the biggest games of the year, but there's often value with those games. We've got the big game breakdown NFL style. You're going to look at Cardinals and Panthers in between there. Adam Trigger. I just did a college basketball video with Adam Trigger. He's, of course, done a ton of college basketball previews, basically for every conference at Wager Talk News. But we're going to look at some football with him today. College football, NC State, Wake Forest, the game I'm interested in talking about. Also, Vikings Chargers in the NFL with Adam Trigger. And then we close it out with the prop master himself, Andy Lang. He's going to look at 3 NFL props for this Sunday. Can't wait to talk to the prop master. But Teddy, before we do all of that, I know you're a frustrated man many ways sometimes, but I know it's particularly frustrating for you today. And explain why to the viewers. What did you learn last night?
So I came on the show yesterday, and I said I've been running cold all week. What do you do when you go cold? You don't panic. You don't force. You don't play anything extra. And you just keep your wits about you. And then what happened last night? I passed. I'm not going to force anything. I'm not going to play anything extra. And what happened? Every single bettable opinion that I had cashed last night. Every one of them. If I'd have played anything, I'd have won. If I'd have played multiple games, I'd have won them all. So, the other side of the coin, when you've gone cold, is worth noting. Why'd you go cold? All right. Are you losing the coin flip games and you've kind of lost more coin flip games, the 50-50 games, than you would in a normal week? Yeah, that's what makes it go cold. You have some wrong sides? Yeah. But don't overreact to the handful of coin flip game losses. I lost a bunch of them during this week where, could have covered with 5 minutes to go, could have covered with 2 minutes to go. All said and done, they didn't cover. And maybe those tough endings took me off my game a little bit yesterday. It was frustrating. No question about it, Stephen. Whenever we have these situations where, when we run hot, we like to talk about it. When we run cold, it's important to talk about it. The struggles that we have as individuals, I think, are fairly common. And I know that many of those of you out there in the audience have had your own fair share of struggles at the time. So when I'm having issues, I like to talk about it. It's cathartic for me, and it helps perhaps give you guys a sense of the struggles that can and will happen in a world of sports betting. That's what I learned last night, Mr. Merrill. What about you?
Yeah, I just kind of want to follow up on your points because I think there's some things that are really important to talk about there. We always stress how sports betting is a form of investment, but of course, for many people, it's not. In fact, sadly, for most people, it's probably just a form of entertainment. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can have some fun, betting $20 on a football game. It's the same thing if you spent $20 to go see a 3-hour movie, right? The great thing with football is you could actually double that money. So, there's nothing wrong with taking an entertainment approach. But you and I, of course, as full-time professionals, Teddy, this is a form of investment for us. So it is frustrating when you hit those cold streaks, but a lot of it is just random variance. And he brought up such an excellent point about analyzing the handicap of those games. Like, did you really just get it wrong? Was there a play-on team that's maybe no longer a play-on team for you? Some situations that aren't working anymore. And more times than not, it really is just random variance, in my opinion. And we talk about, try to hit 55, 60% winners over the course of the season, you'll make a lot of money. Think about it this way. If you try to hit 70% of the games in which you really handicap correctly and have an edge, and then you let those 50-50 games just kind of wash out in the other 30% of the outcomes, that gets you down to that 55-60% range. And that's how you have to look at it. By the way, there's nothing wrong when you're running cold, backing off a little bit. I know it's frustrating when those last cuts win. You almost root for them to lose sometimes so that you don't have that frustration. But big picture, when you're running cold, the last thing you want is an 0-9 or 0-10 day, because that can just bury people. So money management is the key to sports betting. It's the key to investing. You back off a little when you're not running well. You can press it a little bit with the house's money when you're running well. That's just how I look at it, Teddy. I mean, anything else you want to add on that?
No, I think you nailed it. Sometimes this is a humbling business, and it doesn't matter how long you've been in it. It's a humbling business. Whenever you're like, I can't lose, I'm seeing everything great, it doesn't last forever. And of course, and that's probably a good thing. We all got egos. Prez has got his ego. You got yours. I got mine. We all have egos. And the fact that this business just kneecaps you every so often, once or twice a year, you just get clocked. It helps cut you down to speed a little bit, So there you have it. Let's get into it. We have a loaded show and 3 guests. Yeah. So that's all I have to say about why I suck.
Well, you do not suck, and you and I have been doing this since the 90s. I know you've had a lot of monster runs. I believe you had a 42-10 baseball run about a decade ago. So you get as hot as you do cold, if not more so. Someone that always makes me proud, Teddy, I don't know about you, is Rob Veno, and he's about as good as they come. He's been number 1 in the NBA in totals for several years now at WagerTalk.com. Trying to catch you there, Rob. I was number 1 in college hoops, which you got me in the NBA last year. Rob, let's get right into it. Hey, you're looking at what used to be maybe the biggest college football game of the year, and that's Miami of Florida, Florida State. Totals at 60.5 in this one. You look at the side or total. I have a feeling you're a totals expert. I have a feeling you're going to talk about the over-under in this one.
I am, Steve. That's a good call. We're going to talk about over here, over 60.5. I'm going to ignore the side. I mean, there's conflicting trends on Miami of Florida here. 1-4 against the spread as a favorite. The only time they've covered as a favorite was against Central Connecticut. However, inside conference on the road, they're 2-0 against the spread. And those 2 games happen to be against Pittsburgh and North Carolina State, arguably the 2 best teams in that league. So I think those 2 conflict. We'll stay off the side. We'll go to the total for Florida State. Let's look there first, guys. There were a lot of rumors about COVID issues last week, right? Up to 20, maybe 25 guys out due to COVID, but it didn't really come to fruition. In their 2 deep, 49 out of the 54 wound up playing. But one who didn't was quarterback Jordan Travis. And he's a key to Florida State's offense, no question about it. Without him last week, they weren't as good offensively. He's back this week. Their left guard, Babian Johnson, maybe their best offensive lineman, is back this week. So Florida State back to full health as far as offense is concerned. When you look at the matchup, it's really hard not to play over in this instance. Let me just start by saying Miami has gone over this number, 60.5, in 3 of their last 4 games. So they've been scoring, especially with Tyler Van Dyke since he took over at quarterback. He's going to get to throw against the 73rd ranked pass defense in the nation here. In his last 3 games as starting quarterback, 325 passing yards against NC State, a very good defense. 426 passing yards against Pittsburgh, a high-pressure defense, a lot of blitzes, a lot of sacks. And then 389 passing yards last week against Georgia Tech. So, despite the fact that Miami hasn't been able to run the ball a lick and they're really one-dimensional, they've still been able to throw it and throw it really well. Florida State will allow you some on the ground, so maybe they can balance it a little bit here. I think when you play totals, guys, I talk a lot about quick strike touchdowns. In this game, Miami, touchdowns from outside the red zone. They and their opponents combined in their last 5 games have 18 of those, 18 touchdowns from outside the red zone. We love those when we're playing over. They happen quick, get us quick points. Their defense predicated a lot on high pressure, blitz style, Manny Diaz pressure. They don't really get to the quarterback, though, and Travis is mobile. And I'm going to point out 3 quarterbacks here in conclusion real quick that have given Miami fits as far as point production this year that are mobile, much like Jordan Travis. Sam Howell for North Carolina, 45 points scored for UNC. Devin Leary, 30 points scored by NC State on this defense. And then Brennan Armstrong, 30 points scored on this defense. Jordan Travis brings a lot of those similarities to the table. I like this one up and over the number, guys, 60.5.
So when we look at Florida State, they've gone what? I guess they did get over the total against Clemson, but that was a game that only got to 50. And it's certainly not an offense that's been moving up and down the field on a regular basis. And Miami has gone over each of the last 4, but all 4 of those games have been wild shootouts where they had to keep the pedal to the metal. Well, 45-42 against North Carolina, the 1-point win against NC State, the 4-point win against Pitt, the 3-point win against Georgia Tech, all down to the wire games where they had to keep their foot on the pedal. Against Florida State's offense, is this one of those type of games, especially considering the head-to-head between these two teams? I haven't seen a whole lot of them get over 60 of late. In fact, only once in the last 5 meetings between these two teams, 6 meetings between the two teams, has one of the two teams gotten to 30. So talk about that a little bit, Rob.
Yeah, different identities for these teams at this point in time, Teddy. I believe Miami has allowed 30 points or more in 6 of their last 7, so it's not like their defense can stop anybody. And a lot of those opponents, believe me, were high-flying offenses, and that stands to reason. But still, they haven't been able to stop anybody this year. There's a lot of reasons for that. Like I say, they're high pressure. The blitzes don't get home. Mobile quarterbacks have given them fits. In a game price ranged where this one is, you would expect it to be close and have to keep the pedal to the metal. Travis just brings that dimension to the offense in the games where he's played, where they're able to move the ball up and down the field, and against this Miami team probably score. Love what I've seen out of Van Dyke. Like I say, it doesn't matter what you bring against him, whether you bring pressure, whether you're good on the back end and don't have to bring pressure, he still finds a way with no running game to throw for a lot of yards and score a lot of points. Charleston Rambo's found a new home in Miami of Florida. 2 quick strike offenses. Miami allows quick strikes themselves and opponents. So I just think over 60.5 is the right way to go. Fast track, guys. A lot of games this weekend and no real weather issues across the country. So that's strange for mid-November.
Although I did do a show yesterday, Rob, and we were talking the Ohio State-Purdue game. And the host told me there might be some winds in Ohio State and Columbus, some windy conditions, and that'll be very interesting because Purdue basically throws the ball every play. So something to keep an eye on there for Columbus for the weather issues. I actually mentioned that in my college football top 25 video, which is right here on WagerTalk TV. So you can get a lot more college football breakdowns. And Rob, one game that will not be in my college football top 25 video this weekend is the next game we're going to talk about, and that is UAB Marshall. But they're actually a pair of 6-3 teams, and it's the next one on the rotation, just like the Florida State game we just talked about. This also at 3:30 Eastern. You're looking at the side or total here. UAB Marshall's a 4.5-point favorite. Total's around 55.
I looked at both, and I like both, Steve. I'm going to talk about the total staying under here. But before I start, I would not talk anybody off of UAB plus points in this game. I think it's down to 4.5 right now. Power ratings made Marshall -3. But it's of huge importance in Conference USA. And when you break it down, it's probably more important. In fact, in my opinion, it is more important for UAB to get this victory. If you're Marshall, you could lose this game. They sit in CUSA East. You could lose this game because they have a date with Western Kentucky next week that will probably be for the division title. So losing to a West Division team is not going to hurt them tiebreaker-wise. Still want to win it, of course. But the other side has more of a sense of urgency because UAB trails Texas San Antonio by 1 game right now. If they lose this game, UTSA is undefeated. UAB has 1 loss. If they lose this game and go to 2 losses, next week's game at San Antonio would be meaningless. UTSA basically would win that division and show up in the Conference USA championship game. So for Birmingham, extremely important to carry that 1 loss into San Antonio next week, hopefully in their case beat them, and then wind up with a tiebreaker edge over them for the CUSA title game. With that importance, let's look at this real quick. UAB came out of a bye last week. They scored in that game against Louisiana Tech 7 of their last 9 drives, all produced points. Pretty good. It's a lousy defense that they were up against, but it's good to see UAB scoring at that type of clip, and it's good to see the way they did it because they're primarily a run-first team. They go for 295 yards in that game. Their top running back, Dwayne McBride, goes 14 carries, 210, 15 yards a carry against that La Tech defense. They scored. This was interesting to me, guys, because I talk a lot about outside the red zone. UAB scored 3 touchdowns in that game from outside of the 20. And to my surprise, they have 15 on the year, which is really strange for a team that likes to pound it out on the ground. You don't really associate them with quick strike touchdowns, but they've had some, in part, some of the lousy defenses played. Their defense last week, a counter could be they gave up 38 points, but those 38 points could be a little bit misleading because they only allowed 4.4 yards per play. Probably more important there. In this game, Marshall quarterback, and Marshall's taken on a new identity with Charles Huff as head coach. It's a vertical pass game more than it is a run game now. And Grant Wells, the quarterback, has been really good, but he's going to go up against the UAB pass defense, which kind of shut this team down last year. And with Bill Clark at head coach, I expect them to be in some kind of umbrella, everything underneath, make Marshall earn it down the field, not get big chunks. It is the 7th ranked pass offense in the country, but again, I trust UAB's defense here to slow that down. And UAB is pretty good against the run, so maybe they can keep them quiet. The defensive turnaround for Marshall has been pretty eye-opening the last 4 weeks, only 12 points per game allowed. Granted, again, it's been against soft opponents, so it's hard to speak with real conviction on the defense making a complete turn, but it's probably good enough to stack the line against UAB and at least contain them. 55 points to me is an awful lot in this game. You're asking for 28 aside, all touchdowns. I'm not sure it gets there, guys. I see this more in the 27-23 type range, which would only be 50 and keeps us under the number. Although I like both UAB plus and the total under, I think I like the total under a little bit more here in what should be a real competitive game with a lot at stake.
Yeah, and so I was at the follow-up question. I always assume you're playing overs, Rob. So my follow-up question was making a case for the under. So I'll join on you. If you look at UAB's defensively, their last 4 games, they've allowed 3.9 yards per play, 2.1, 4.9, and 4.4. That defense is loaded. And offensively, I know they hung 52 last week, but that offense for most of this year has been stuck in the mud. And it's likely to be stuck in the mud here against a Marshall defense that you talked about has played much better of late. What do you attribute Marshall's defensive turnaround to? And obviously you expect it to continue, but how's Marshall started to play good defense down the back half of this campaign?
Yeah, I think it's the same with any first-year coach and coordinators. Teddy Charles Huff brought an Alabama-style defense to Marshall. Remember, they played the same defense under Doc Holliday for a lot of years. And it just takes a little bit of time to get it, in my opinion, because they've got the athletes. They had a lot of returnees on that side of the ball. But I think it's clicked in for them this second half of the year. So I would expect both of these defenses probably to be the best units on the field come Saturday. And hopefully we get under 55 points here.
Rob Veno, WagerTalk.com. He likes the Florida State-Miami of Florida game over the total. Marshall UAB under the total. And, you know, UAB's gone over back-to-back games. But as you know, Rob, they were under 6 of their first 7 this year. And Marshall, meanwhile, has gone under 4 of their last 5. And he also likes UAB as a little bonus lean for you. He thinks the side total dog under correlated, which often is the case and makes sense. It's a 3-0 game. You're looking pretty good. Rob Veno, I mentioned about your NBA, though. We didn't talk any pro basketball today, but you are number 1 the last 2 years at WagerTalk.com, over a 240% return. Tell us about your great basketball and what else you got going at WagerTalk.com this weekend.
Yeah, NBA, guys, has really gained some traction over the course of the last 8-9 days. I think we're on something like a 10-3 run in the NBA, which took a few games to weed some stuff out. You guys follow it as well. You know the poor shooting that existed throughout the early part of this season, you know, the first 5, 6, 7 games. Stuff like that is seemingly turning around a little bit right now. And the wins have come along with that. Last night sweated out. Well, didn't really sweat out a first half total over with the LA Clippers. They got there with fairly easily. But today, 4-star best bet already up and available in the NBA, so we can certainly talk about that. It's over at WagerTalk.com on my page. You can get that right now, 4% best bet, NBA. Also going to be releasing a 5% college football play this afternoon. So for those watching or those who will watch, go ahead and check it out, WagerTalk.com.
Yeah, once again, if you want some more NBA from Rob Veno, he is on NBA Tip-Off today at 4:15 Eastern live right here on Wager Talk TV with Joe Ranieri, Kevin Dolan, Tony Mejia. And, of course, you can catch it anytime, 24/7 archive, this show or any other show that you might miss live here on Wager Talk TV. It's a great reason, Teddy. Subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Give it a thumbs up, like, and comment below. And when we're back in 20 seconds, big game breakdown, NFL style, Cardinals-Panthers. I'm really interested to hear about this one, Teddy. It is some uncertainty, to say the least, at the quarterback position. Big game breakdown in 20 seconds.
Sign up for the free WagerTalk Text Club to gain access to free plays and exclusive discounts. Just text WagerTalk to 33222 to sign up and get a $10 coupon to use on WagerTalk.com.
It is time for today's big game breakdown. Let's talk a little NFL for Sunday. One game that stands out to me is Arizona and Carolina. Right now, look at the Wager Talk live odds screen. I'm seeing the Cardinals as 10 or 10.5 point favorites. There is legitimate variance there. If you like Arizona, find a minus 10. If you like Carolina, find a plus 10.5. That's a hidden edge for bettors that you need to take advantage of. Total in this game sitting at 44. There are a couple of 44.5s out there, and I will be talking about the total, in my opinion, more than the side we're looking at, the under between the Cardinals and the Panthers. Don't know if Kyler Murray is going to play. I'm not worried that Kyler Murray is going to play. Colt McCoy, the game plan obviously is much more dink and dunk. I know we took some shots last week against San Fran. That had a lot to do with the 49ers defensive coverage breakdowns. They had breakdowns the week before against Chicago as well. It's not a great 49ers defense. But whether it's McCoy or Murray, number one, if Murray plays, I expect a very conservative game plan with him. And not a situation where they're going to allow him to take extra hits. Not a situation where he's going to be creating a lot of plays with his feet. And against Carolina's strong pass rush, not a situation where he's likely to be taking a ton of downfield shots. I think Arizona's going to dink and dunk whether McCoy or Murray is behind center against a really good Panthers defense. Arizona's defense is, I think, one of the more underrated units in the NFL right now. You look at the numbers. I mean, the Thursday night game against Green Bay, they gave up 24. Other than that, their last, it was a gave up 20 to the Rams and 10 to the Niners and 14 to Cleveland, 5 to Houston, 17 to San Fran last week. And even that, was another dominant defensive effort. I believe in Arizona's defense. And I can't say that I believe in Carolina's quarterback. PJ Walker, a nice story. You watch him play, and I've watched him play. I don't think he's an NFL quarterback. He's certainly not going to be one of those games where Carolina has a super aggressive game plan. And let's not forget when it comes to injuries, left tackle Cameron Irving for the Panthers. He's getting an MRI. I don't think he's playing. You talk about Matt Paredes, the starting center, season-ending injury last Sunday. Arizona 2 with significant injury concerns. I don't know that DeAndre Hopkins is going to play here. Justin Pugh on the offensive line, Max Garcia on the offensive line, Chase Edmonds. Like the under. I'm not expecting points in bunches in the desert. Look for the Panthers and the Cardinals to stay under 44. There's your big game breakdown.
Big game breakdown, NFL style from Teddy Covers. And I agree with you, Teddy. I think, McCoy obviously a very capable NFL backup, and you almost maybe would rather have a healthy McCoy than a hobbled Murray. But either way, it's going to probably be a conservative game plan. So I like where you're going. Panthers, Cardinals under the total for big game breakdown, Teddy Covers. And we're going to transition over now to some college football and also a little bit more NFL talk with Adam Trigger from WagerTalk.com. I mentioned Rob Veno is going to be on the 4 o'clock Eastern NBA tip-off show today. I forgot to mention Rob's going to be on the 3 o'clock college football show, and Adam Trigger is going to be with them on the 3 o'clock Eastern college football show. And then before that, I'll be on the 2 o'clock college basketball show. My goodness, it's busy at Wager Talk TV. And don't forget, if you miss any of these, 24/7, every day, all weekend long, archived here, so you can watch it at your pleasure. And don't forget about those podcasts. If you don't want to look at Teddy and myself, you can listen to our smooth voices podcast style, WagerTalk.com. Adam, speaking of WagerTalk.com, in the top left of that page, they click on Wager Talk News. They're going to get 20-plus conference college basketball previews from you. So we're not going to talk any college hoops today. I know you actually have a strong best bet going tonight in college hoops at WagerTalk.com. But let's start with college football. And you've got an interesting game to talk about. I used this in my top 25 video, which is on WagerTalk TV right now. There were 5 top 25 matchups. We only had 1 last week. We got 5 this week. When it rains, it pours. And the one that kind of got swept under the rug was this NC State Wake Forest game. It's on the ACC network at 7:30 Eastern. Didn't even get a major TV billing, but very well could decide the conference title. So the question for me, Adam, is does Wake Forest have that hangover after the first loss of the season, or do they stay focused knowing that this game has a lot of meaning still?
Well, Steve, I think not only do I think they have the hangover from the loss last week, I think NC State's the better team here regardless. I really look at this NC State team. I see a team that's really solid defensively. They don't turn the ball over, only 7 turnovers this year. They have a quarterback who's thrown for 2,500 yards, 25 touchdowns, and just 3 turnovers. And Wake Forest is just an atrocious defensive team. Their only saving grace is the ability to force the turnover. And if they can't turn NC State over, I don't see them getting a ton of stops in this game, because you watch them the last month, they haven't really gotten a ton of stops in any game aside from the Duke game, and Duke's just a bad football team right now. So I think NC State's the more complete team. They're going to be by far the best defense Wake Forest has seen in at least a month. And, I've said this a number of times with a number of different teams. I like this angle, and I keep going back to it. This is the dream crusher spot for Wake Forest. There had to be a point in time last week where they, maybe got into halftime with the lead against North Carolina. Certainly in the third quarter when they were up 18, they had to feel like they had that game won, and they would have been 9-0, and like the college football playoff was a legitimate possibility. They at least had to think it. I'm sure it was what they were preaching going into the week. Hey, if we win this game, we're home next week. This is a real possibility. That, the ACC is way too weak this year. Even if they win out, they're not going to the college football playoff. So that dream is over. So I think, yes, it could be a flat spot for Wake Forest, but more importantly, I just think NC State's the better football team. We're getting 1.5 points with them. This is a 4% best bet for me. I don't have it up for sale, but it is a client play. So yeah, I'm on NC State, the Wolfpack, plus 1.5, 4% play. I absolutely think they get it done in Winston-Salem this weekend.
So I want to ask about some of the concepts here, Adam, because when you talk about Wake Forest saying their dream is crushed, do you think that these kids really, going into the season, you think their goal was to make the college football playoff? Because I don't think there was a goal. Anyone on Wake Forest is like, our goal this year is to make the college football playoff. And they lost what is a non-conference game. Even though North Carolina's in their conference, it was a non-conference game. So all of their goals are still ahead of them in terms of, can we play for an ACC title? And in my mind, that is a much stronger goal than for a team like Wake saying, all right, we're not competing for a national championship this year. They didn't expect that. Thoughts on that, on my thought process for the disappointment factor for Wake? I don't think they'll be disappointed at all. I think they'll be fired up because they still have a chance, and a good chance. They're in the driver's seat to win their half of the conference.
Yeah, it's certainly not it's not the only angle I look at, of course. In this case, I think it's more how they lost last week that really sort of leads me to the sort of letdown factor. I mean, they halfway through the third quarter, they had an 18-point lead, and it just out of nowhere. I mean, I was on North Carolina watching the game, and even I was like, man, okay, this is probably a loss for me right here. And out of nowhere, North Carolina figured out how to get stops and came all the way back to win that game. So I think the sort of potential letdown factor is more how they lost, not so much that they lost. But I do think it is relevant because I think at least the thought of being able to run the table had crept into their mind at that point. After getting through Army, they had the easier win over Duke. I think they had to feel like if they were able to beat North Carolina, it was a possibility. So maybe not as big of a letdown as some other teams that we've looked at in this situation. But I think there's a potential little letdown there where they could, quote unquote, lose the North Carolina game twice. But for me, this is more NC State just being an undervalued football team. They're 7-2. They could, they had a loss to Miami, which they probably should have won. Their only other loss way back in September to a pretty good Mississippi State team. I just think the NC State defense is far better than anything Wake Forest has seen the last month. They can get stops, and NC State takes care of the football. They should be able to move it. So when I look at the two teams, I actually, even if Wake Forest had won last week, we might be getting a little bit better of a number. We'd probably be getting like maybe an NC State +3. I would still like NC State in this spot just as much. I think the Wolfpack are the better football team. So, the Dream Crusher spot is more of just a little extra because I still think matchup-wise, this NC State team's better and they're going to win this game.
Yeah, and you bring up an excellent point about that high-scoring shootout. I actually mentioned that when I analyzed this game in depth on my college top 25 video here on WagerTalk TV, that it's one thing to, lose a game, have a letdown, but when it's a 58-55 back-and-forth game, that just physically and emotionally leaves you fatigued. And talk about a defensive edge. NC State's a yard per play better defensively. Don't forget, Wake Forest gave up 56 points to Army a couple games back. They've now given up 34 or more in 4 of their last 5 games when you get set aside the Duke game. So huge defensive dog. I made the line 1. It's currently +2. So I'm in agreement with NC State from Adam Trigger. Adam, we're going to look at an NFL game, but I will remind people once again, you specialize in college basketball. You and myself and Kelly Stewart just did a video today, which will have a nice little shelf life on WagerTalk TV, handicapping how we handicap college basketball. So I invite everybody to check that video out this weekend here on WagerTalk TV with Adam, myself, and Kelly Stewart. It's a college basketball 101 breakdown about why it's such a beatable sport and how we approach it from beginning, middle, and end of season, different parts of the segments of the season as well. So check that out here. You've also got your first 4% college basketball best bet going tonight on an 80% run. So check that out at wagertalk.com, Adam Trigger. But let's look at the NFL here on the way out. And I want to talk Vikings Chargers. Now, it's currently LA Chargers -3. There's a lot of -$1.15s out there. Total's 53. I'm not sure if you're looking at the side or total here, but first of all, if you're looking at the side, would you say wait, take that 3.5 or play the 3 now, or do you like the total better?
So first off, I really like the Vikings in this game. The reason I didn't play it yet, it's definitely on my sort of long list of things I'm still looking at for the weekend. I didn't play it because there was definitely some sharp money on the Chargers earlier in the week. So yeah, I would say, but for me on this one, at least 3 with the Vikings. If you can get a 3.5 at a good price, obviously shop around. The Chargers, they've been kind of a fade for me since the beginning of the year. I took the Chargers season win total under, and reason being, they lost guys on their defense going into the season, where this defense is really a pass rush, and they're soft in the middle. And if you can beat the pass rush, you can beat the Chargers from that side of the ball. Kirk Cousins probably handles the blitz as good as any quarterback in the league. I still think he's underrated, and he's very good. He has his moments where he sort of maybe, plays down or whatnot, but he's great against the blitz. And I look at this Vikings team. If they've blown like 3 games, like they could be far better than their record this year. I think back to opening week, they fumbled at the 50-yard line. They could have beat the Bengals in overtime. They had the Cardinals beat in week 2. And then just the lapse against the Cowboys, there was a winnable game against the Browns. I cashed with the Vikings last week +6. That was a game I felt like they completely threw away and should have won. So, the Vikings, they probably should be better than they are. And I think I think we're seeing Justin Herbert finally come back to earth a little bit. He tends to struggle with the blitz, and Minnesota can create pressure. So whereas last week he had a great second half against the Eagles because they really couldn't get after him. That's not going to be the case here with Minnesota. They should be able to blitz and create some pressure, which I think Herbert might struggle with. So as far as this game is concerned, I think the Vikings, again, I still think the Vikings are undervalued because of their record, which I feel like it should be better. I actually see these two teams pretty even. I think the Vikings are going to be able to run the ball on the Chargers as well. The Chargers' run defense is not great. So Vikings +3, even better if we can get +3.5. But I actually like Minnesota in this spot, and I think they're going to win this game.
So Minnesota has had a COVID outbreak this week. They've had the Dalvin Cook legal issues this week. They've lost Danielle Hunter for the season. Michael Pierce isn't going to go this week. Harrison Smith is on the COVID list. Rashad Breeland has a bad groin. It's a defense that got absolutely gashed against Dallas's backup quarterback, got absolutely gashed against Carolina before their bye week, and then last week against Baltimore gave up 500 yards and didn't get a stop after halftime of that ball game. This is a defense going to stop the Chargers?
So I'll address the Cook thing first. I actually think they're fine with Madison. I think they'll still be able to run it effectively and move the ball. So I'm not like overly worried if Cook is not in there. Obviously, COVID news is something that's worth following, looking at. Like I said, I haven't bet this game yet, and I probably won't until at least after today. So maybe tomorrow at the earliest to see what comes out of practice today. Usually by like Friday night, Saturday morning, we have a better idea of like what personnel is going to be for an NFL game. So I'll definitely wait to see that. But I really think as long as they can pressure Herbert, so as long as I feel like they're going to be able to get to him and rush the passer, I still like the matchup for the Vikings. I think Cousins can torch this defense. I think once you get past the pass rush for the Chargers, this defense is not very good. And they've kind of played back down to earth a little bit the last 2 weeks. Back-to-back losses. They got destroyed by the Ravens. I know they beat the Eagles last week, but I still think the Eagles tend to beat the Eagles more than anyone else. So I just think I'm getting good value here with the field goal. It's a game that I think that, another final thing, if you look, both of these teams just can't do anything but play a close game. Like every single Chargers game is close. Every single Vikings game is close. Wouldn't be surprised to see another close game here. So if you're going to give me a field goal and potentially a field goal plus the hook, the way I'm going to look here is the Vikings.
Yeah, once again, there's a lot of threes minus $1.15 on the Chargers. And just looking ahead to what might make my Fade the Public video this Saturday here on WagerTalk TV, the Chargers are in the mix. Not sure it's going to be one of the most public plays, but there's a little bit of public love for the Chargers. So I would definitely recommend waiting and trying to get a plus 3.5 on the Vikings. I don't think there's any chance it's dropping back down to 2.5 or lower. So it's LA Chargers now, Minnesota Vikings later, if that's the way you're looking to play this one. Adam, thanks for joining us. Once again, you'll be on at 3 o'clock Eastern here for the college football show. You and I did the college basketball video, which will have a nice shelf life here on the videos all weekend long. And then, of course, you've got your first 4% college basketball best bet going tonight on Friday on a mere 8 and 2 80% run this week. Best of luck, Adam. Great seeing you as always. Crush them this weekend in college and pro football as well. And Teddy, we're going to have Andy Lang here in just a moment, the prop master at WagerTalk.com. And I say this every time we have Andy. If you're looking to diversify your investment portfolios, we talked about at the beginning of the show, Andy is a great guy to add to that portfolio because he covers a ton of props in all different sports. He does NASCAR as well. I host the NASCAR show with him. Teddy, it's not only about picking winners, but it's about having diversification. When one sport's not running as well as others, it helps even out that cash flow. Andy's as good as they come. And if I'm not mistaken, we have an Andy Lang sighting right now. When we last spoke 2 Fridays ago, you looked a little different. We all had our Halloween mask on. Teddy decided to keep his on today, Andy. You and I did not get the memo, but nonetheless, we're going to go right into the prop world. Welcome to the show, Andy. We're going to look at 3 NFL props. Let's start off with a Falcon game. Let's look at a Falcon prop. Mike Davis, Falcons. Where do you see him going?
Well, him and his stock are going under, and that's where I'm going with this play. Taking the under 53.5 yards rushing and receiving. So I'm gonna take both categories combined here. So the number's 53.5. He's just not getting the touches. He's not getting the yards. Patterson is just taking over this backfield. I mean, you could argue he's been their best offensive skill position player right now. Cordero Patterson leading the Falcons in rushing and receiving was not something on my radar before going into the season. I can tell you that right now. But Davis has had 9 or fewer carries in 3 straight games. He has over 2 catches in only 1 game out of the last 5. The Cowboys, you can move the ball on them, but it's just probably going to be Patterson and not Davis. Patterson has gotten more touches than Davis in 4 straight games. He's outgained Mike Davis in every game this year. So we're just seeing Mike Davis's production just slowly creep down, and Patterson's keeps going up and up and up. So Davis is definitely not the main guy in that backfield. So the only way you can play Mike Davis is under right now, and I'll do that at 53.5.
So, Andy Lang, you tweeted at me yesterday about, I honestly think if you didn't have it, it's a funny bad beat. Okay, it is. It's as brutal a bad beat as, and again, when you're talking about team totals in soccer, all right, you can get some bad beats, I'm sure. I'm sure it's not the only bad beat out there. But rather than ask you a Mike Davis follow, why don't you tell us about a team that didn't get a shot on goal for the entire game and yet still cashed over a half goal for that game, much to your chagrin? That when you don't get a shot and you still score a goal and you have them under a half goal, yeah, that's a tough beat. Talk about that for a moment.
This has to be a top 3 all-time bad beat. So it was Croatia and Malta in the World Cup qualifier, and we had Malta to score under half a goal. Croatia, we just said they're going to dominate. So the game goes, and Croatia does dominate. They held the ball 68% of the game. They just obliterated them. And Malta got 0 shots on goal. So they did not kick, head, or touch the ball to the Croatian goalie at once. However, a defender for Croatia attempted to clear the ball out. He kicked the ball off of his own head and bounced into his own goal. So Malta gets credited with a goal despite having 0 shots on goal. So 0 shots, somehow 1 goal, and we lost an under on a team that did not shoot the ball at the opposing goal. I woke up this morning and I still can't believe it. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah, and Andy, this is a textbook example of what Teddy and I were talking about at the top of the show. You know, sometimes when you have a loss or a win, you got to kind of dig in and do your homework and be like, you know, did I handicap it correctly? I'd say 99 out of 100 times, maybe 999 out of 1,000 times you're going to win that bet, maybe even more. So what are you going to do, right? And that's exactly why you don't put all your eggs in one basket. And that's why diversifying with props, college basketball is so important, because it's going to happen. That's rough. And Andy, by the way, has a soccer background, so he knows his soccer as well with these other sports. Andy, let's stick with the NFL. This is an interesting one. You're looking at a first quarter over-under in the Lions and Steelers game. And, you know, the full game is around 42.5. The first half is around 21.5. The first quarter is 7.5. Give me your thoughts on why you're looking at the first quarter versus first half or full game in the Lions and Steelers.
We've had a lot of success this year doing first quarter unders. You're looking for teams that get off to slow starts. And like we said, we like these first quarter unders because there's no hurry at the end of the first quarter to get points in, you know, like there is in the second quarter and sometimes in the second half. So we've been focusing on this quarter. And these are 2 of the lowest scoring teams in the league in the first quarter. I mean, talk about coming out of the gates cold. The Steelers averaged 2.6 points in the first quarter. The Lions averaged 2.5 points in the first quarter. Combined, these 2 teams have 5 touchdowns in the first quarter all year. That's both teams combined. The Steelers are a perfect team to bet these first quarter unders because their defensive line can cause problems for the other team, but also Roethlisberger seems to be on his last leg, and that offensive line is bad. So their offense isn't putting up a lot of points, but their defense is doing a pretty decent job slowing the other team down. I just think these 2 teams are going to struggle to put up a touchdown and a field goal. And when you're looking at these first quarter unders, that hook is so important that we get a 7.5, because now we need a touchdown and a field goal to go over. So 2 field goals don't beat you. 1 touchdown doesn't get the tie. So I like that the Steelers also run the ball a lot. They have a lot of short passes. It keeps the clock running. So yeah, Lions and Steelers in a pretty boring first quarter. I'll take the under.
Although it's worth noting that the Steelers have been known to go for 2 after that first touchdown. So that hook may not, you know, they haven't done it much this year, but that's something Tomlin has done a bunch in the past. And I think they did do it once this year where they went up 8-0 on someone. My question is this. Detroit's coming out of the bye. They've had awful starts, awful first quarters. You know, they've been behind in every game early except for, I think, the Packers game back in week 2 on Monday Night Football. I mean, they've been, really having a lot of early struggles. Maybe the Rams game as well. But the point is this. There's been talk in Detroit about getting off to a faster start this week. Does that concern you when you're looking at a first quarter under, knowing that you have a team coming off a bye, a winless team coming off a bye that, in theory, is going to come with a little something extra?
Oh, I'm sure they would love to get off to a great start. I'm sure nothing would make the Lions coaching staff and players happier than getting off to a fast start. But saying you want to get off to a fast start and having the personnel to get off to said fast start is just going to be too much. Their wide receiving core has got to be the worst in the league. And Goff has not been good, obviously, but I just don't know about the weapons around him. I don't know what more he can do. The running game is okay, but again, they're going up against the Steelers defensive line that is good. Steelers should be able to shut him down. I do not see a fast start in the Detroit Lions' future.
Yeah, exactly what I was thinking, Andy. It's like it's one thing to want to do it. It's another thing to be able to execute it. This is a team averaging 6 points in the first half this season, I believe. The Detroit Lions, the only winless team in the NFL still. The Texans, the only one-win team. So that's how bad the Lions have been. And Andy, if they do go for 2 and you lose 8-0, that might trump your soccer bad beat. That would be the double, the exact, and then we look for the trifecta. We got to transition the last game while we have Andy Lang. Once again, WagerTalk.com, the prop master. He covers all the sports props, Croatian soccer when they play Malta. That gives you a little taste and example of what he's looking at. And when we're talking Mike White props, if you told me a month ago at the beginning of the season you could get Mike White under 3.5 rushing yards for any game, I would have jumped on it because there was no chance he was even playing in that game. Of course, that would have voided the wager, I guess. But this is the guy that I believe has 5 rushing attempts on the season, is maybe -1 yard. First of all, anybody named Mike White doesn't sound like they can run the ball. It cracks me up still that the third-string quarterback is Mike White. It's the most generic name I've ever heard in all of sports. But, Andy, do you think under 3.5 rushing yards has some value? Because it looks like it does to me. Mike White of the Jets.
This is it. This is my favorite prop that I have discovered. It is my big banger, humdinger, Mike White under 3.5 rushing yards. He just doesn't run the ball. He's played in 3 NFL games. He has a grand total of -1 yards rushing. In the 2 games he played that the Jets lost, he had 0 rushing attempts for 0 yards. In the game he played that they won, he was credited with 5 rush attempts for -1 yard because we had the kneels at the end of the game. So in research, I went and looked at him in college. All right, so he played for a few years in college. He was credited with 136 rush attempts for -470 yards. He played in 45 games in college and the pros combined, and he has 4 games ever where he finished with more than 0 rushing yards. Those 4 games were against UTEP, Charlotte, Louisiana Tech, and Vanderbilt. And Steve, I checked my power rankings. I have the Buffalo Bills rush defense ahead of UTEP, Charlotte, Louisiana Tech, and Vanderbilt. Mike White under 3.5 yards rushing. My favorite prop this week for sure.
Why is it 3.5? That's my question.
Yeah.
You did have one run against Cincinnati that I think went for 4 yards.
All right. Well, I don't think he's going to get there again. In the 2 games that they lost, he had 0 attempts. Also, don't forget he's coming back off of an injury. I can't imagine he's going to want to stick his nose into the defensive line. I can't imagine he's going to want to get out in space. It's just a guy that doesn't run a whole lot. And against this team, I'm guessing he's going to play it safe and throw the ball away instead of trying to get to the outside.
Mike White always plays it safe. That'd be a great nickname. Mike White always plays it safe. And yeah, I mean, once again, you got a backup quarterback here, a very pedestrian offense. Yeah, it'll be interesting. Andy Lang loves his humdinger prop of the week is under 3.5 rushing yards for Mike White of the New York Jets. Andy, on the way out, tell us what else you got going. You cover all the major sports props galore. Andy Lang, WagerTalk.com, @BumpSports on Twitter. Andy, what else you got going on?
Right now, I'm running best in NBA props. We're plus 36 units on the NBA season for NBA props. We have a great card tonight. It's a great slate of games, some really good spots. We've had a lot of fun doing them, and we're cashing a lot of tickets. So if you're looking to get involved with something that I've been running really good at the last few weeks, it's definitely NBA props. That's what I would recommend. I think we've got 8 or 9 props just for tonight alone. So it's been going good. We got high expectations. We're off to a great start and look to continue the momentum on that.
I love it. And once again, Andy Land is the prop master at WagerTalk.com. Great way to diversify your portfolio. College hoops is also a great way to do it, Teddy. And I have my NFL Fade the Public video this Saturday. My college football top 25 video is ready right now here on WagerTalk TV. If you missed those videos, I did have a promo code Merrill199 that gets you 30 days all sports for $199. Normally it's $349. Football alone is $249. I'm doing it for $199 because you're basically getting basketball for free with that football discount because I want people to try basketball. 25-7 start the first 2 months last year in college hoops, already 100% this year. Merrill 199 gets it done. 2 R's, 1 L, MERRIL. Merrill 199, 30 days all sports for just $199. That's less than football alone, and it includes all my basketball as well. Teddy, I'm going to let you take us out. Thanks for letting me guest host with you. The Prez will be back on Monday. Don't forget to subscribe. Click that bell for instant alerts. Thumbs up and leave me comments below. Teddy and I love our comments. I reply back to each and every one. So leave us some comments. Teddy, thanks for having me. Have a great weekend. Take us home.
Pleasure's all mine, Steve. And I want to thank all of our listening audience and viewers today. I want to thank all three guests, Rob Veno, Andy Lang, and Adam Trigger. Of course, Steve Merrill, the co-host, and the fine gentleman behind the scenes. That's going to wrap it for the week. We'll be back again on Monday, 9 a.m. Pacific time, noon for you back east. Between now and then, enjoy the games and good luck this weekend.
Why pay regular price when you can save money on every purchase with WagerBucks at both WagerTalk and Sports Memo? WagerBucks are now eligible for use on not just daily, 3-day, and 7-day passes, but all long-term and seasonal packages up to 1 full year. There are tons of options available for every budget and size of better, from as low as $90 gets $100, all the way up to $3,500 gets you $5,000. Save every day on every pick you buy with WagerBucks.